Hello, this is Mark. Before our episode this week, a quick message to let you know that we do talk about some sensitive issues inspired by first episode of the Chucky TV series. This includes domestic violence. If you feel a discussion about sensitive topics like this may cause you some upset, please listen with caution. In the meantime, if you are a victim of domestic violence, a couple of numbers that you might want to consider calling. The 24-hour National Domestic Abuse Helpline provided by Refuge is 0808 2 000 247. The National LGBT Plus Domestic Abuse Helpline number is 0800 999 5428.
We made this.
Hello and welcome to Chucky Vision, the podcast about the Chucky TV series and the surrounding franchise right here on the We Made This podcast network. My name's Mark Adams and I am your host today, and with me at this time, as always, is my co-host Dev Elson. Hello, Dev.
Howdy, y'all. You might notice a slight drawl at the moment. I've acclimated to American culture. It is the only way that I can watch this show legally.
There is an elephant in the room. We are British, and there isn't an official British launch of Chucky until later this year, we've just discovered, because Sky have bought it. So obviously we have found a way around it. We wanted to get this podcast out in a timely fashion, but what we will be doing is, when it's released on Sky and Now TV, we'll be supporting the show and rewatching it via either Now TV or a Sky subscription, because I can see myself wanting to watch this again a lot.
Yes, that is a great point. We will definitely advertise when this goes out over here, because this first episode is really good. This is aiming to be a really good TV series.
I think so. But that is what we're covering today. We are covering episode 1 of the Chucky TV series, Death by Misadventure. And should we just get straight into it, Dev?
Yes. God, we have talked about it many times in the movie franchise, that every time there's a gap between films, they always try to do like a soft relaunch, and it feels like a new franchise, but then it's both a new franchise, but it also feels really well established already. We had that with like Bride of Chucky, we've had that with Curse of Chucky. Now again, it's like that. We talked about it when we predicted what this show would be like, and I think we're pretty right in that it is very much focusing on the new characters, particularly Jake, our new protagonist, but there are elements of the past movies just seeping in, just here and there in this first episode.
Yeah. It's aware of where it's come from, but it's not relying on it. And we have talked about the return of lots and lots of characters being confirmed, but so far it's Chucky and a very brief audio from Andy. And I think that was the right decision for the first episode. You've got these new characters that you're going to be spending 10 weeks with, and I think they need to be established before you bring back the other characters. So I think that was a smooth move, actually, for this.
Yeah, and it does it really well. I don't want to open this with a comparison slam. I watched 15 minutes, the Scream TV series, the first episode of that.
Oh
And
yeah.
I don't know, maybe it got better, but tonally, from the start, it felt very toothless. Whereas this episode just starts off so strong as a new TV series. Like, obviously, I'm a fan of Chucky, but it does so many things well at like establishing new stuff, like Jake and his like family life and the school. Everything comes off really strong in this as like a new concept.
I think you're right. I actually quite liked the Scream TV series. I remember it getting very good, maybe towards the end of series one. And yeah, I think stuff like the Scream TV series being relatively successful is why we've got Chucky. And I guess we've got to be grateful to them for that. But I know what you mean. The way this episode is set up, it gives dedicated fans the little nods that they want, but it's not excessive and it's not gatekeepery. I don't know whether gatekeeper is a word.
It sounds like a word, and that is a great descriptor of it. Yeah,
We've both been pretty obvious about how we loved this. But the critics agree. I did have a little looky look on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's got a 93% freshness from critics and a 95% freshness from the audience.
whew, that's good. And what's better is that critics got access to the first 4 episodes,
They
so
did.
we know that this show continues to be good.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. I hadn't thought about that. But I think I'd like to actually talk about. I've been on some Chucky forums, and there is a lot of hate about Chucky being woke, having a homosexual agenda, how it's ruined the franchise by making it too gay. And I'm like, really? How can you possibly suggest that it's ruined the franchise by being too gay when Seed of Chucky is a thing?
And even if people like, I know some people like. I mean, Seed of Chucky is quite a debatable film, but like, even Bride is very camp. People should have known the sensibilities of this franchise ages ago.
Yeah, it's written by a gay man, for fuck's sake. And these people who are pretending to be fans literally know nothing about where the franchise came from.
Yeah, I really don't agree with that. Like, especially making Chucky woke. Like, first off, like having a gay protagonist doesn't affect Chucky in any way. He's still, he's still a monster. Like, he's still the same Chucky he always was. And then it's just that weird concept of like, well, if Chucky was like a real serial killer, of course he'd be homophobic, and of course he'd hate women and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but it's fake. It's not real. Like, Don Mancini shouldn't have to write characters in a way that he doesn't want to write them.
I just think people are idiots. What a ludicrous thing to say. This was incredible television.
Yeah, and it's brave enough of Don anyway, because he doesn't. It's not like, I mean, there's a huge difference between him and oh god, who's Ryan Murphy, the guy that writes American Horror Story?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between these shows already, because like, I feel those shows are always like super camp, like Seed of Chucky, but then there'll always be like a weird, like really uncomfortable, like homophobic moment. Like, there'll be like one character
Mm.
who's homophobic, and it's like, is this still camp? Like, what's going on with this tone? Whereas here, it's like it's built in a real reality. Like, yeah, Don Mancini is writing a gay protagonist, and he's going to explore that. And I think there's some great moments in this of like romantic interest and stuff that you really feel from this character. But it's also really brave of Don to write that he's also writing like homophobic characters as well. Like, there are
Yeah.
people in this that don't like gays, and
Yeah.
if you're complaining about this show being woke, he's writing it how it is, like in reality.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And obviously, you and I are never going to dislike a television program that has sympathetic gay characters and depicts homophobia in an accurate, however harrowing it is, kind of way. And these people that allow television to be ruined because there happens to be a gay character in it, well, as far as I'm concerned, they can get in the sea. They don't deserve a brilliant television program like this.
I don't understand what they want it to even be about, because they're simply just wanting more Chucky. Like, I don't know if a show can be built around just a doll. For as much as he loves the doll, Don, loves writing characters, and he likes writing new
Yeah,
and interesting characters. And this is a
yeah,
great example of him getting to write more characters than he's probably ever done in one of the previous films.
yeah, I think so. The show actually starts with what, well, we are made to think is a doll's eye view. And I like that it started with something that is recognizable for fans of the franchise. The kind of creepy, kind of low level, because the doll is short, and the low level vision, and like a Doom clone, I suppose you could call it, but a little bit lower because he's little.
Well, it's funny that you say Doom, because I was going to say it opens with a very deliberate homage to Halloween.
True, also
How
that.
that opens with, little Michael Myers walking around, and he walks in on his sister brushing her hair, like in the exact same way.
Also true.
That's a very on the nose, but also interesting, like, parallel to make. Especially since, did you watch that bizarre TV spot?
No.
There was a TV spot where Chucky is carving a pumpkin, and then the pumpkin has like Michael Myers' face on it, and then Michael Myers, like from Halloween Kills, comes in and like smashes the pumpkin. So we got, for a TV spot for both the TV show and the new Halloween Kills, we technically got Chucky versus Michael.
I didn't see that. How did I miss that? Ha!
It was odd, but it was pretty cool.
Right, I'm going to dig that out. I'm going to find it and I'm going to share it on our socials, because if I've missed it, other people might have missed it too. And that sounds lots of fun. But, and obviously we are going deep into the discussion about this show. So if you haven't watched it, try and watch it before you listen to this, because there will be lots of spoilers and I'm about to drop a big fat dirty one. Everybody ready? It isn't a doll's eye view. It's a boy's eye view. And it is young Charles Lee Ray. And that was the cliffhanger? I mean, I don't know.
This episode did feel like it had a lot of endings where it was like, ooh, that's a really good ending. And then it went on a bit more and it was like, ooh, that's cool. And then the very ending of Little Charles in Charge, I was like, oh, that's a really brief ending. Okay, a little boy.
I loved this episode. I'm very much going to say that, but I didn't actually like the ending. I thought it was a little bit of an anticlimax, and it didn't feel like a big enough reveal. And I don't know. I'm not sure I'm that invested in the Charles Lee Ray storyline either. And it's interesting. It played with the format. It played with your expectations. But
I'm definitely open to hearing more of Charles. I mean, again, like Halloween, it's interesting to learn that he killed his family when he was a kid. And then I also saw online Jennifer Tilly was doing an interview, and she was saying how interesting her character is, because when she picked it up on Bride, she took it like, and you can see in that film, she took it like she was in love with Chucky, but like he was really the man in charge and she was just like following him. Whereas
yeah,
apparently later in this show, it really shows that she's an instigator. Like she was the one like getting him to start murdering and stuff. So that's interesting.
interesting. Yeah, I think perhaps I'm more interested in how Chucky and Tiffany met than I am in young Charles Lee Ray. I don't know. I'm more than prepared to be wrong and prove that it's a great little storyline, a great little subplot that I will love. But that is the only thing really that I find that I can be critical about. And I do feel like there's some money behind this. I presume you don't get a Billie Eilish track for very little money.
Yeah, there is a lot of pop music in this, like a lot. But it never, to make another comparison, the first Fear Street film, did you see that?
I loved it.
The 90s one? Yeah, I really loved it. But I remember that first act when it was literally like they would play like I can't even remember some of the bands, but they would play like a really moody emo song for like 10 seconds and then immediately go into like Insane in the Brain for like another 10 seconds and then
That
go.
soundtrack was out of this world.
It was crazy how fast they were just skipping through songs. But here, it never felt like overbearing. Like, aside from like one or two songs near the beginning where I just was getting used to how much music there was, like by the end, I was like, oh, it's just, music in the background. Like, it never felt annoying.
No, I think I've mentioned this a couple of times that Bride of Chucky is an anomaly in the Chucky franchise in as much as they clearly spent a significant part of their budget on licensing music. All the others are cinematic scores only, really, whereas Bride of Chucky explicitly went into the kind of 90s metal scene and got some incredibly good tracks. And this feels like a nod to Bride of Chucky, that they've invested in some, some big artists, maybe not artists that resonate with me as well as Monster Magnet or all the other cool bands on the Bride soundtrack, but it definitely was something I recognized, and it's definitely engaging with the popular culture of the time. So I think a comparison between Bride of Chucky and this first episode is a fair one.
Yeah, that's interesting. That he definitely there's definitely some parallels, but he didn't go for like a nostalgia thing with that, did he? He didn't use like that old 90s music. He
No.
used this, modern music for modern teens. And
You've got to remember that Bride was modern music at the time.
True, yeah. And again, I feel like this isn't like it's not like this isn't music that is alien to Don. Like Don probably handpicked a lot of these songs. He probably knows these songs. The only song I will say stuck out a little bit was the I don't know if it was the Billie Eilish one, the one where Jake is really angry in his room after an argument, and then
No, it's not Billie Eilish. Billie Eilish was the opener.
oh, I was gonna say that was a really good song, but the one where he's really angry, and then like the lyrics are literally like, "This is how villains are made," and I was like, that's a little on the nose, but I mean, hey, it's fun.
Oh yeah, well, it was a little bit blunt, but I love that track. I did Shazam it and add it to my playlists, and I'd not heard it before, but it's a great song. And you're right. I think that it's difficult to pick a song that is thematic that doesn't seem cheesy, and that didn't feel cheesy.
Again, I use this word a lot, but it felt camp in the right ways, not in like a totally over the top way. But yeah, again, this episode has been really tonally consistent, which is a strong point.
Yeah, I think so. So we're on a podcast, and there's a podcaster as a main character. That made me smile.
Also, not just a podcaster, but a podcaster named Devon. So
I was going to ask you how you felt about the fact that one of the main characters is called Devon.
Well, a little weird because we've got that character, Devon Evans. Then we also have Devon Sawa. And then we have Devon Sawa again. So a lot of Devons in that.
I mean, in Britain, Devon's quite a rare name, whereas perhaps it isn't as rare in America. I don't know.
Yeah, that was definitely odd. But, I mean, if we're talking characters, do you want to get into some of the characters now?
Yeah, let's do that.
Quite a good cast, and it's a lot of interesting characters. Some less likable than others, but there's a good range of characters in this.
Yeah, I think Devon is very, very sweet, and I like how it's ambiguous about whether or not he's actually queer, gay, or bi, and there could be a romantic relationship between him and Jake, because hell, if that wasn't how a lot of things worked out in my childhood, I feel like as a gay kid, you have even more to deal with when it comes to romantic relationships, because the world assumes that everyone is heterosexual, and you have to work out whether someone might be interested in you.
Yeah, and I was going to say what was so rich and so interesting about so organic about the interactions in this, especially between Devon and Jake, was so many hetero romances in these kind of things, like especially high school things. It's very much love at first sight, you know? They introduce the
Mm,
love interest with like she's walking down the corridor and she's like flipping her hair in slow motion. And it's like, oh, she's the prettiest character, so she's the love interest. And here it's
mm,
like they're not just physically interested in each other. They're talking about the podcast, they're talking about other stuff. Like they have actual there's that very real moment or series of moments where you connect with someone on something
mm.
and you're like, are we really good friends? Is there something more? It's a really interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good way of depicting that difficulty that queer kids do have, or at least I had.
No, I mean that's a very real moment to explore, and I wonder if Don is going to explore the heartbreak of that, because that is a very real heartbreak that like Jake could be interested in, Devon. Well, it seems like he definitely is interested in Devon, but like that moment of like, at one point or another, you have to be upfront, don't you? And you have to ask, like, are you interested in me? And I wonder if Donna's gonna have that heartbreak of Devon not being interested in Jake, or hopefully. I mean, he seems like he wants to be a friend at least.
Yeah, and I think it is ambiguous about whether or not this is a friendship that's developing or a romantic relationship that's developing. And I have every confidence in Don Mancini doing it sensitively. However, it ends up with the relationship between Jake and Devon being. And if it involves heartbreak, I think it'll be really well written because I bet, like me, Mr. Mancini has gone through that shit.
I'm trying to think outside of Devon, some of the I don't want to say every character, but quite a few of the characters are decidedly less likable and empathetic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Dad, Junior, Lexi, and Aunt Brie are all horrible people. His life is full of horrible people. And to me, again, I don't want to be critical of it because I really, really enjoyed it. It does feel like this is a list of fodder for Chucky to kill.
It is an interesting, again, how the tone of it, like, until just thinking about then, there's a lot of good tension scenes in this between characters, but I never at one point or another felt like, oh my god, everybody in this is so unlikable. Like, I never actually felt that. Like, oh, this whole cast is just full of, like, fodder. I feel like at one point or another, every character had not exactly a sympathetic moment, but like a moment of humility or just a real moment.
I think you're certainly right about Junior. I'm not so sure there is about his dad or Lexi.
Well, that's the thing. I think once you see them at their cruelest, it's hard to see them otherwise. And I mean, my 2 points were I feel like the first scene with the dad, there's definitely an underlying tension, but they are trying to just act normally around each other. It's not until
Hmm.
a couple scenes later where it starts to blow up. And then even then, it's not. I mean, yeah, it is the dad's fault, but like, it's really Junior's fault for bringing it up at the that dinner scene that triggers dad. Like, dad at the
Oh, yeah.
very least is trying to just not acknowledge it, which is still bad. That's still very bad.
It's still not okay.
Yeah, it's he only gets really bad when other people seem to bring it up.
Yeah, because he's the classic embarrassed dad who is very disappointed that he sired a gay boy and he doesn't like other people knowing and pointing it out. And again, other gay people may have had that experience.
Yeah, and
It's hard to watch, actually,
it
for
is
me.
hard to watch. Yeah, it's hard to watch for me as well. Like, because yeah, when he wants to be cruel, he can be really cruel. But at the same time, like, again, I don't feel sympathy for him. But when they come to blows in that moment, and Jake says that he wishes his dad was dead, like his dad does seem hurt by that as well.
Hmm.
His dad is very much in a bad place, like in general.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And I think you can also see his dad as a study in grief. Admittedly, he
Mm.
doesn't last very long, but his dad is a study in grief and what it can do to good people. I think it probably exacerbated his anger and his upset that his kid was gay.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't seem like the sole reason. Because, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I don't know, he probably still would have been mad if their mother was around. But, like,
Yeah, but less so,
this
I think.
feels like something for him to focus on. Like, this is the reason why our father-son thing isn't working. And not because he's a raging alcoholic.
Mm, mm.
But the also thing as well, we don't really see it. We see a bit of it. We're going to talk about Lexi. Apparently, some of the reviews say that Lexi does become a much more sympathetic character in the next couple episodes.
Right, but we can only go on the first episode because
Yeah.
that's all we've seen. And yeah, the impression I got is that I just don't understand how that girl can, even with the richest of parents, I get that it's a comment on society, but even with the richest of parents, the way she behaves, she's eventually going to get fucking got, you know?
Yeah, there's two very different moments with her in this, and there's the GoFundMe moment, which is really horrible. That's a super cruel thing to do, and I'm amazed that like she didn't seem to get in any trouble for that. That seems like a thing
No.
that would blow up, like if someone
Yeah.
did that in real life.
Yeah,
Like
I think so.
it wouldn't just be one teacher talking about that.
And even with an entitled parent who's got a lot of power, I think the evidence is so clear that the kid has done wrong that something would have had to have been done.
Yeah, and so that is an incredibly cruel moment, especially the way they explore her feelings towards that afterwards. That she just really doesn't care. Like to her, it's just nothing. And then you also get a flip side again, and again, like the dad, it's not like a complete face turn where we feel super sympathetic for them and we realize they were really bad. You know, they were just hurt people. But you do get a real moment of hurt at the talent show where you do get that sense of like her whole life and her what she's putting out as her life is extremely fragile because she gets really upset by just a few mean comments.
Oh yeah, I think she's just such a insecure person that her money and her outward facade is killing her, actually.
Yeah, because you get that's what was interesting about the way that she gets humiliated is that Chucky shares her search history, which again I think we've talked about in the earlier some of the like Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky. It's an interesting way of Don Mancini using modern technology in the way that modern teens would use it, and that's a real interesting way to get right at like cutting someone is using their search history against them because it really like even though there a couple of them are like jokes and stuff, but like someone at that age looking at Botox and stuff, that's a real insecurity. Like that's a
Yeah,
real intimate part of her like her thought process and stuff. So like
yeah,
getting straight to that, can really emotionally hurt someone.
yeah, I think so. We've skipped ahead into various bits because we started talking about the characters, but I want to go back to even before the title sequence runs. Have we seen animals knowing that Chucky is dangerous before? I think we have, haven't we?
Yes, that was an interesting moment. Have we?
Because Kitty definitely knows. Poor Kitty. I was not pleased at the Kitty death, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I mean, all the people talk about woke Chucky. He will still gleefully murder an animal.
Yeah, he's murdered the cat, and if that doesn't make Chucky a monster, I don't know what does.
And that is a very funny moment where we don't get
It's
a lot.
not funny that
No,
he kills the cat.
not that he kills the cat, but it's a funny moment at the end when Jake is lashing out about him killing his dad, and Chucky thinks he's lashing out because he killed the cat.
Yes, true. True. And again, even before the title sequence, Jake is a little bit like that creepy kid in Toy Story, isn't he?
He does tear apart dolls and put them back together in weird Frankenstein art.
Did you like the art?
It reminded me a little bit of like Human Centipede with all those arms and stuff, but I can see why he would be so upset about it because it's like even like artistic expression aside, like there was a lot of time and effort put into that.
Oh, yeah. I think what his dad did was absolutely abominable, but I didn't like the art. I didn't even think it was creepy, and I normally like shit like Geiger and that sort of thing. I just thought it was a bit crap.
Well, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, that's, I guess, interesting for that character of Jake, because he's still, in many ways, exploring who he is as a person.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely fascinating that.
He's just, I mean, that art. Yeah, I guess that art doesn't really have a sense of where it's going. He's just, he's just adding to it. He's just seeing what clicks.
Yeah, and I think the whole point is that it's his artistic output that isn't appreciated by people he wants to appreciate it, to the point where his dad is embarrassed by it and then destroys it. I think it's awful what his dad does. Even if you can't like someone you care about's artistic output, or you're just even not interested in it, both of those things are okay. But putting them down and destroying it is just beyond the pale.
Yeah, it is. I do wonder if that's the only thing we're going to be, like, if we're going to actually explore posthumously, like, some of his dad's issues and stuff, because, like, again, we sort of get that, we get that aspect with, between, like, Jake and Lexi. We also get that between, his dad and his brother, the dad's brother, both played
Yeah.
by Kevin Sawa. And there's definitely that aspect of, like the dad is also miserable as well, because like
Oh,
he's
yeah.
insanely jealous of how, like, rich and popular his own brother is.
I mean, are they supposed to be twins? I couldn't work out whether they were supposed to be twins.
Well, they're both played by the same guy, so I'm guessing, yeah.
Yeah, so I think obviously there's a comment there about how one twin is incredibly successful and one twin is very much down on his luck. And people compare themselves to be their friends at the best of times. But imagine if you had basically you, but he was doing better than you. It's an interesting dynamic, isn't it?
There's a lot of hate and misery in that dad, because like even like, I mean, imagine he would probably be jealous of just how, like, popular Junior is and how well Junior is doing as a child. Like,
Mm.
he probably wishes he'd have Junior instead of Jake. But then, like, he also like snaps at Junior as well for, like, bringing up the gay stuff. So just the hate inside him just makes him seem to hate everyone.
I think so. And Junior's revolting at that dinner table. And Aunt Brie, massive invasion of privacy. She just walks into his room without permission. Everybody there is just horrible.
That did remind me of Curse of Chucky, the family in that, and we're gonna be
Yeah.
seeing more of this family. Because I don't feel like Don Mancini wants to write horrible characters for an entire season. These characters must either die or evolve in some way in the next couple episodes. Like
Yeah.
Junior, especially, because I mean, I've been listening to your other podcast, Right in Childhood, so maybe this is a reference. But this is much like Drake and Josh. Now that Junior and Jake are living together.
Yeah, it could be a Drake and Josh type situation. Good thinking.
And yeah, I mean, I doubt they're going to become friends in the next couple episodes, but like, I wonder how quickly one of them is going to change, because obviously Jake is on the path with Chucky to becoming potentially dangerous. I wonder
Mm.
how Junior is going to be, because, as I say, we've had that moment. We've had a couple moments already with Lexi. We've had the talent show, and then we've also had that moment in the school scene where she was in a room alone with Chucky, and she got very scared very quickly from that. So I wonder if, now that Chucky and Junior are under the same roof, if Junior is going to be put in his place.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because Junior, out of all of them, is the one that showed a modicum of humanity and let up on the bullying of Jake at one point.
Yeah, it seems from his position, much like Lexi, it's that he is the most popular kid in school, so he's expected to, like, put down the lesser cool kids.
Mm.
And there is an interesting dynamic with the fact that he's related to Jake. So, like, I imagine at the end of the day, no matter how hateful he is towards Jake in a performative way, that he does sort of realize that they are still family, and he doesn't want to be too hateful towards him.
Yeah, I think maybe Jake out of everyone is redeemable, but bloody hell. So I want to ask you a question. You're, what, 15 years younger than me, maybe? Did you do dissecting at school?
No, as far as I'm aware, no, we never did do that.
No, and I didn't. I went to high school from 1990 to 1995. So when I was around the age of Jake, and they'd very much written off the idea of dissecting an animal. We dissected a flower, I think, but we'd never had a dead animal put in front of us. And is America that fucking backwards that they're still putting dead animals in front of kids? Or is this just a trope?
I think it probably still happens in some states. I don't know if it's a countrywide thing.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? How this franchise has made me think about weird shit that I automatically assumed was gone from our world forever twice now. Because, we've already discussed electroshock therapy.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of weird American aspects to this. Again, though, it's not just pointless. It shows an element to Jake that he really doesn't like blood, and that
Yeah.
it almost, he really had to turn away, because it was affecting him. So that's definitely going to be an element between him and Chucky.
Yeah. Yeah, I think obviously it's a nice and easy borderline tropey thing because you see a lot of dissecting scenes in school scenarios, don't you?
I think that is an important thing to show that he is turned away so easily by violence because, like as we've said, he is the weird art kid in school and he's a little bit
Yeah.
gothic. And I feel like if they went on that too hard, he would feel like the guy in the first season of American Horror Story. He'd be a little bit school shooterish, wouldn't he? And I
Yeah.
feel like that shows that, like, no, he wouldn't do anything like that. I mean, there's a lot of pressure from Chucky, there's going to be, but, like, on his own, he wouldn't do anything like that because he does just seem like a quiet kid.
Yeah. I really like him. I think he would be the kind of kid I'd have resonated to at school because I was a bit of a weirdo.
Yeah, it is a little odd how he seems to have, like, little to no friends. Like, how often did that happen in school? I mean, even, like, the weird kids. I mean, I was a weird kid in school and I had friends. It kind of felt like everybody had friends.
Yeah, I think it's happens. I'm glad it didn't happen to me. And it is very, very sad to see.
Yeah, it's an odd thing. He definitely did get bullied a lot in this, but I guess maybe that, I mean,
Yeah.
they just had to do it, didn't they? Because, like, if he had scenes where he did have friends, because it's like, if someone, like, like any of those bullies, like, called him gay or whatever, but then the next scene he just turns around and just walks off with his friends, then it's like, oh, a character, like, it still hurt, obviously, insulting
Mm.
someone, but, like, they can brush it off because they're with friends. I feel like, they had to make him just on his own so that he had no one to turn to except Chucky.
There was that character that he briefly interacted with who asked him whether or not his cousin was gay.
Yeah, that was an interesting scene. That was interesting how Jake really went quiet at that because it's like they asked him like what that kid's name was, and I don't know if Jake answered because it's like,
Mm.
I mean, everyone I guess assumes like, oh yeah, Jake is gay, but like Jake's never confirmed it, and like that I feel like that's him shying away from like an actual out gay kid.
Yeah. I wonder if that kid that he talked to about that will come back. He might be a victim or he might be a potential friend for Jake. Or he might have just been a little cameo.
Maybe. I mean, he could come back.
Mm.
I mean, I feel at some point in this, Jake is going to come out.
Yeah.
And then I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
things are going to sort of turn around for him.
It seems at the moment that his gayness matters more to everyone around him than him,
Yeah.
which is fascinating. I never experienced that personally, but I came out a lot later than this. So Yeah, I'm really enjoying the storyline and seeing the experience of other gay people. Gay people who were braver than I was, I suppose.
It's definitely going to become part of his life because now he's obviously interested in Devon, and Devon is talking to him now, and they've got
Mm,
something to talk about of the whole Chucky stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't in this episode, was it? It was in the trailer for I guess one of the next episodes. But Devon talks to him about Charles Lee Ray,
Yes.
so Devon might learn about Chucky early on or something. So they've definitely got stuff to talk about and reasons to be around each other. So that's definitely going to come up
Mm,
eventually. That Jake is interested in him, and then also I
yeah.
just feel like what with his dad being gone now, that's going to free him up from a lot of the intense pressure of hiding who he is.
Mm. I'm going to move on to talk about when Chucky first starts to actually move and be proper Chucky, which was when he was with Lexi in the detention room. And I have to admit, I was really, really delighted that vile Lexi was going to be the first victim. And then when she wasn't, I was horrified. And I have to say, round of applause, well done, well written scene. You got me, hook, line, and sinker. And I feel that as well as being queer, I feel like this is quite a left wing piece of work as well. And he is toying with left wingers like me because I would have loved to have seen the rich girl that got no comeuppance get some comeuppance. But of course I would. I'm left wing. And she doesn't. And that reflects the society that we live in.
Well, that's what's interesting about what the reviews say and stuff. They say in the next few episodes, Lexi, I don't know if she turns a leaf, but she gets more sympathetic,
Okay.
which is good because it doesn't turn Chucky into like a social avenger or anything. Like he's going out
Mm.
to kill the bad guys. Like Chucky will kill good people.
Oh, yeah.
Because I mean, that's the thing. Jake is genuinely like angry and sad and like hurt when his dad dies. So like he didn't want that sudden and shocking violence. And it's probably going to be the same way with a lot of these people. Like,
Oh, yeah.
he definitely hates Lexi, but like, I imagine there's going to be a moment where Lexi shows who she could be and who she can be. And then Chucky's gonna take that away.
Or there might be a moment where he's put into a position where he can decide whether Lexi lives or dies.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the way. Because there are those moments in the trailers where she's like running through the woods, and there's not
Yeah,
Chucky, there's a guy, like a person with a knife.
which is interesting.
But then it's again what happens to Lexi, because it also seems very much like we do get her death scene in the trailers, because there are those scenes of Chucky attacking her in a bedroom. So it'd be interesting. I'm interested how many more episodes we do get of this character.
This is the thing about trailers, isn't it? That they deliberately misguide you and make you think one thing with clever editing of the clips they have, you know?
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking that now, in the way that you said how a lot of the cast seem to be fodder, that I don't see this going the way of all these characters dying, and then who are we left with? Jake, and then what, he teams up with the old people, like Andy and Kyle?
Maybe.
Like, some of these characters have to live and, like, go eventually on the side of Jake. Eventually.
Yeah, I think so. And I hope I'm wrong about the fodder thing, but you can potentially see where I'm coming from on it, though, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I just think, I mean, as we've complimented him many times, Don Mancini is a good character writer. So I think,
Mm,
as people have said with like other characters like Lexi and stuff coming up, these characters are gonna become a lot more rounded as it goes on,
yeah,
and it's
I
gonna
think so.
become harder to tell when these characters or if these characters are gonna die.
I'll be fascinated to see whether I'm actually sad when Lexi dies, because currently I'll be whooping like I'd be whooping a lot. Let's put it that way. What I like about this is it didn't go too far and kill off lots of characters in one go. It only had the one death, which was
Fantastic.
Well, let's talk about the death. As innovative horror murders go, yeah, this was a good one. I don't think I've ever seen anyone kill someone with puke before.
Yeah, I saw a tweet of that he kills someone with puke, and I was like, how the fuck does he do that? But he does it, and it's surprisingly simple in a way, that how he does it, but like, Jesus, what a weird way to go.
And the image of the doll puking was repulsive.
Oh god, yeah.
It needed to be. I have to admit, I was concerned that the gore would be toned down because it's television. And so far, it hasn't been very gory, but it's been creative in its place, which I'm all about. I think that's a really good way to deal with that issue, if it is indeed an issue.
Yeah, it was a really good balance of it not gory, but also like scary and like graphic, and it was a shocking visual to see. When it was directed really well, the way that Jake slowly comes down to the basement, and we slowly see more and more of his dad being electrocuted.
And then we see the kind of jumps of Chucky moving towards him.
Yeah.
Oh, that got me. That absolutely got me.
That jump editing was so good with the flickering light, how he's in the background, and then Jake drops to his knees and Chucky is right there next to him. Really well done.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. We've jumped ahead again. Do you want to talk about the ventriloquism thing briefly?
We've kept mentioning the talent show, but what a really inventive sequence that was to get Chucky in the public eye and get away with it.
Well, it's a little bit like Shithead, though, isn't it? Was it Shithead or Shitface?
Shitface, I believe, yeah.
Oh, it was a Shitface, sorry. Shitface. But basically, they did that at the start of Seed of Chucky. And I think, again, it's a really nice callback. We got two really nice callbacks, actually. The cameo appearance by Andy, have you checked the batteries? And then he checks the batteries like the mum in the first film. And then we've got Chucky being used as a doll, which is a nice little callback to Shithead or Shitface. Fuck's sake.
But yeah, and again, that was so cleverly done, so that Chucky can talk. Brad Dourif can talk as Chucky, and he can talk to people without immediately setting everyone off. Like he got to be himself a bit earlier. And that was an interesting scene because, as we've talked about with Lexi, how especially because the words were coming from Chucky, not Jake, but everyone thought that the words were coming from Jake.
Yeah.
That it was like the only way to. It's like fighting fire with fire. The only way to overcome bullying is by bullying other people way harder.
Yes, absolutely.
And it felt very pointed and it felt very cruel.
Yeah, and it's very much a depiction of two wrongs don't make a right, and I'm all about it. But I think what's fascinating is that Chucky started relatively well behaved, then got carried away and used the 2 or 3 fucks that they're allowed per episode in that one scene.
Yeah, he called everyone fucking assholes, which is amazing.
Great. Absolutely great.
And everyone just laughed at that as well. I'm
glad that they're allowed the fucks. I think I actually retweeted Chucky saying all his fucks were... It was basically all the fucks in the episode were him. And he mentioned that there was a limit to the number of fucks he could say. And I retweeted him. Well, not him.
I love how you keep saying him as well. Chucky is just a person now.
No, it was like someone pretending to be Chucky on Twitter, obviously. But no, I retweeted that because it made me laugh. And we can say fuck as much as we like on this podcast. Fuck, 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 fuck. I am so fucking mature. But yeah, the difference between Shitface, for fuck's sake, between Shitface Head and Chucky is that Glenn or Glenda was being manipulated by the ventriloquist, whereas it was actually the dummy manipulating the ventriloquist on this one. But it definitely made me think of Glenn or Glenda.
Yeah.
And we're not going to see them in this series, but I think Don does want to bring them back.
We do. Well, I sent you that. I sent you that interview that there is a reference to Glenn later on in the show.
Yes, there is going to be a reference. He said, yeah.
And I mean, that's probably the wokest Chucky will get, is that he talks about his queer kid and that he's fine. He says, "I'm like Jake says, and you're cool with that." And Chucky's like, "Well, I'm not a monster."
But I think the fact that he comes to Jake's defense, despite the fact he knows that he's a confused gay kid, actually shows that, he's learned maybe a little bit by having a queer kid.
Possibly. I mean, that's what's interesting about how Chucky feels as a character. I mean, I know that the early films, people were comparing him to Freddy, because, like, how many talkative killers are there that crack jokes while they murder people? But Freddy never really evolved as a character because, he's, like, everyone he talks to, he's just going to crack a few jokes then kill. Whereas here, Chucky really feels like an actual person inside this doll. And
yeah, it does feel like he gets an immediate fondness for Jake because he's no longer looking for someone to use as a body. He can now think about how this young person is influencing his life rather than needing this young person to put his soul into it.
yeah, because I mean, if he wanted to, he could just, like, in that scene in the school with Lexi, he could just kill Lexi. He could just kill half these people. He could just start murdering right away. But, like, Chucky, because he's been around for decades now in this doll, he is in a sense immortal in some ways, and it's interesting how he's not just constantly killing, he is figuring out how to spend his life in some ways.
That's a very good point. How old is Chucky? In my kind of headcanon, he's knocking 60 now. So let's think. 1988. He was, let's go with 35, roughly?
Maybe. I think these, I mean, it does seem like these flashbacks are in, like, the 50s. So 40-ish, maybe?
Should we say 40?
Yeah.
That is doing Brad Dourif in the first film a little bit of a disservice. I don't think he was that old. But let's, for the sake of argument, say 40. So 1988 is like 34 years ago. If he was 40 then, that makes him 74. Chucky's 74.
That does actually track, because Brad Dourif is like 70 now.
Well, there you go. Good grief. Chucky's in his 70s.
And he doesn't show it. That's what I mean. He doesn't seem to be aging inside the doll. He is the exact same persona as he was in the first film.
So it's a bit of a cradle snatcher when you think about it, because Jennifer Tilly's in her 50s.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. I've had significantly different age differences with partners in the past.
I wonder if they're ever going to address that. Do you think that would be an interesting thing to address in the show? The fact that Chucky just isn't aging, but Tiffany is. Like, at some point, Tiffany is going to have to go back into a doll if they want to be together.
True. Or they both have to steal the body of young people.
The metaphysics of all this is strange, but
isn't it? And I think that'll be a fascinating thing if they explore it.
But yeah, to get back to him as a character, it definitely is interesting to see throughout this episode how you can see how he gets bought by Jake, and he's immediately pissed off by the cat. And then there's that great little tension where we realize that Jake is just immediately going to destroy this doll for his art. And it's like, this is not going to be a good start to the friendship. But then, like, as it goes, he carries him around. And as it goes on, Chucky is seeing more and more of how bullied and hated this kid is. And it is interesting. I mean, at the same time, he is a monster. And he is definitely manipulating Jake to become a bad person. But in his own twisted way, he does have some sympathy for Jake.
Yeah, I think you're right. So the only thing I've got left to talk about is something that really, once again, there's a lot that resonated with me because of my own experiences. When Jake was asked near the very end how he got the bloody nose, he responded with, "I fell." And man, domestic violence really is the fucking worst, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a really bad, like a really sad moment. Yeah, because again, like he could. I mean, like he's living with his uncle now, and it's like he could bring up how terrible his dad was, but like, I feel you can tell like he was still broken up that his dad died, and he's still going to defend his dad to some degree, isn't he?
Even when his dad's dead, he's still got power over him.
Mm.
He hasn't got anyone to protect by telling the truth, yet he still lies. And yeah, even the most honest people amongst us can be made liars by domestic violence. That's something that really resonated with me.
Yeah, it reminds me of that earlier bit with how Devon talks about the bullying, and then Jake tries to bring up Junior, but Devon's like, "No, Junior's cool," and it's like, like it's so hard to change other people's opinions. Like, I imagine his dad's brother probably, you know, I mean, I don't think there's going to be any easy heart to heart. Like, oh yeah, my brother was an asshole. Like, it's going to be so hard for him to get free of his dad.
Yeah, but I think everything that I've seen here, like homophobia, bullying, domestic violence, everything has been done so sensitively and with a modern eye that I'm confident that this series is going to be something very, very special.
Yeah, and it's so tonally consistent. It never feels like Mancini is throwing this at the wall or throwing this at the audience for like a shock factor or to be like, look how edgy or cool this is. Like
Yeah,
it feels so consistent to the story he's telling and to the character of Jake.
I think so.
The only other like totally minor complaint I had was when Jake checks the batteries in that classic callback.
You have a complaint about that? I loved that
No,
scene.
no, no. I thought that was really cool, but then he immediately goes and throws him in the bin, and it's like, that doll is like $1,500. What? Are you not going to try and sell that?
Well, it's more that if he believes that Chucky's in there, it's an ineffective way of disposing of the murderer, I suppose. Good point. I hadn't thought about that until you said it.
It just seemed like because of the class and the poverty of his character was brought up a lot. I feel like that character might have held on to that a bit more. Just like, I know it's dangerous, but I could still sell this.
Yeah. I think one of two ways. If he genuinely believes that it's Chucky, then he needs to absolutely destroy that doll. If he's not sure whether it's Chucky, he should totally flog that doll.
That was a really clever move by Andy, by the way. Like putting up postings of good guy dolls to get in contact with people who might be in contact with Chucky. That was really clever.
Yeah, and obviously that's how Andy found him, isn't it?
Yeah, that was a really quick and clever way to get Andy into the story. And I wonder how long it'll take for them to. Are we going to see them next episode? Are we going to see them like episode 3 or 4? When are they going to come into it?
I don't know. I could watch this without Andy for a while yet, but I also wouldn't be mad if we got episode 2 Andy either.
I think we'll be seeing them on the road or something, because if they come in too early, then it becomes a very clear case of us versus Chucky. I feel like Chucky still needs some time to work his way into the dynamics of all these characters and start fucking with people.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a good call, actually. We'll probably see, again, a brief cameo of Kyle and Andy, maybe road tripping down to wherever Jake is. Yeah, that's a good call. I think you might be right. So, I don't normally like doing ratings and all that shit, so I'm not planning on doing it on every episode. But for me, I can quite confidently put this as an 8 or a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. It was everything we really asked for, really. It was,
Yeah,
it was Chucky. It was just how we love him, but it was also entirely new and it was entirely fresh. And, a
yeah,
whole new cast of characters, a whole new setting. It works perfectly for fans of Chucky and newcomers.
I think so. And one final thought is the message from GLAD at the end for people who are being bullied was pretty fucking classy.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I wondered who put that in. Was that the TV or was that like the creators and stuff? But that was that was nice to see.
Indeed. So Dev, that's about it. But where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me, check me on Twitter, at Absolute Travesty, and you'll find me wherever else I am through that on my feed. Just recently on the We Made This Network, on the new show, Scheduled Programming, where we talk about new TV shows. I guested on that with Dan Owen. We talked about the new Netflix horror, Midnight Mass.
Not watched that yet.
We talked about a little bit how it goes off the rails near the very end, but for the most part, it was a really good show. Just like this show, it just from the start, it just has a really strong cast of characters, some really amazing acting. Great show.
Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, I think that was all I've been doing recently.
So for me, I've got lots and lots of podcasts, but there are only really 3 that are expressly active at the moment. There's this one at CHUCKYVISION on Twitter if you're looking for us. I'm also still doing Right in the Childhood, which is a podcast about 2 different generations watching each other's kids' TV. And that is called Right in the Childhood at RITC Pod on Twitter. And I'm also on Shipwrecked and Comatose, which is the We Made This podcast about Red Dwarf. If you're looking for that, it's at Red Dwarf Pod on Twitter. So thank you very much for joining us for this first telly episode of CHUCKYVISION. There's 9 more of these to come by the looks of it, and I can't wait personally. How about you, Dev?
I can't wait. I mean, you blew my mind when, for some reason, because they were just selling it as like, coming this October, Halloween, like, oh, Chucky. And then you were like, yeah, this keeps going into November and December. I was like, oh my God, the rest of the year is Chucky. And if it's this good throughout, then, oh my God, the rest of my year is made.
Couldn't agree more. So thank you for joining us, and until next time, wanna play? CHUCKYVISION is a podcast brought to you by the We Made This Network. Follow us on Twitter at CHUCKYVISION. Follow the network on Twitter at WMT_network. Our website is WeMadeThisNetwork.com. The logo was designed by Dev, and the theme tune composed by Dark Fantasy Studios. Wanna play?
Hello everyone, this is Tony, Network Chief of We Made This. As you know, our podcast network brings together a brilliant assortment of talent who talk about all kinds of pop culture content, such as the episode you've just listened to. We're not going anywhere, but we'd love to keep the lights on for even longer if you're able to support our network on Patreon. For just £2 a month, you get your name in lights and the satisfaction of knowing you're helping us produce more great audio. And for £3 a month, you'll get your name in lights, but you'll also get access to an exclusive bi-monthly podcast from the We Made This talent pool on podcasting, pop culture, and, well, you tell us. We'll take your suggestions. For less than the price of a coffee per month, you can help keep We Made This going. Just head to patreon.com/We Made This. That's patreon.com/We Made This. And get the ball rolling. Elsewhere on We Made This. The Movie Palace Podcast.
Nowadays, it's easy to look back, isn't it, Carl, with hindsight, to say that this is probably one of the greatest films ever made. But at the time, it was barely even acknowledged by awards bodies. Like the Oscars didn't have a peep at it.
Yeah, it's interesting about the awards, considering that, like you say, it's a film that's gone on to it's quite regular fixture on lists of greatest films ever made and that kind of thing. From what I've seen, the reviews were pretty positive though. You know, the reviews are often quite glowing.
free with this month's issue.
Rachel, when did you get into Nirvana?
I think we discussed this last time. I'm a bit younger than you, so
Yes.
I was 2 when Nevermind came out. But
Yeah.
I distinctly remember my mum and my dad.
Yeah.
They had a VHS that they taped off MTV Unplugged.
Oh, awesome.
And I remember watching that. It had Ren and Stimpy on as well. And I always really liked him. And I always remember the reason my mum liked it so much is because she was so interested in his cardigan, the green cardigan that he was wearing, which is a very sort of, you know, twee thing to enjoy, but I think he probably would have quite enjoyed that.
Right in the childhood.
As a weirdo kid, I always thought it would be cool if the Doctor regenerated into an alien, because it never said that he had to look like a human.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And there was one regeneration where it went wrong. Well, they always go wrong, don't they? And there was one regeneration of the Master where it went wrong. So he was like this hideous, scarred
That's pretty
thing.
cool.
That's very old episodes, because I loved the Sylvester McCoy stuff so much that I bought VHS tapes of
his.
previous Doctors. So I have quite a big knowledge
Did a
of
deep dive.
you know, stuff from way before I was born as well, stuff from the 70s.
It's pretty cool.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.